I want the breast advocate users to learn a little bit more about you. So I've got some fun questions. I've got some this or that questions. Okay, no thought, just answer. Just answer the question. Okay. Before I do, Liz, introduce yourself first. This the main icebreaker. Sorry, I'm being rude. Introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Rob, and then I'm going to hit you with these questions.
Yes, so Elizabeth Bantilo, or Liz. So I've been with Spectros for over 15 years. And when I started, I was focusing more so on marketing and sales. Years I've gone through, now working closely with operations. So I've been with the company for a little while, and I've been working with Rob for at least 10 years now.
Yeah, that's amazing. Working with Rob for 10 years. I don't know how you've done it.
Same way you have.
Distance.
Touché.
I think you and I started working together, Dr. Chrysopoulo, about 2 months after Lizzie and I started working together. So it has been 10 years for me. And then I'm Rob Pupilis. Hello. I'm the CEO here, and I'm super excited to be here. And I'm super excited about the support that we've gotten from Dr. Chrysopoulo's group and the feedback, because our goal is really not to just ever be satisfied with what we have. We want to increase the technology, expand it into other uses, and improve it along the way. So we're grateful to be here, and anyway, grateful for this interview as well.
That's awesome. And when you start a project, and you're an entrepreneur, Rob. I mean, serial entrepreneur, in fact, right? So the support you get in your project, it can be a great idea, but the support you get in a project is crucial to get things going. And the feedback we've had from our breast advocate users about the app and the benefits the app has brought them, we wouldn't be able to do that and provide that without support from our sponsors like you. So you guys are awesome. Thank you very much. With that being said, Liz, speeding ticket or parking ticket?
Speeding ticket.
Rob?
Same.
What's the fastest you've been clocked doing?
Me? I don't know.
Yeah, you.
Probably 87, 88, maybe. In a 65.
Okay. All right. Liz, you?
I believe I was politely given under the limit, so maybe 85. So it was not a little more expensive. I don't know. I can't. My kids might see this someday.
Fair enough. Water or coffee?
Coffee.
Liz.
Coffee.
Coffee, I mean, it's just flavored water, right? I mean, it's both the same. As people tell me I don't drink enough water, I'm like, no, I do. It's just coffee flavored. Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
Whatever Morgan tells me I have to use.
Education or experience?
Oh, experience.
I would agree.
Okay. Calling or texting?
Texting.
Maybe calling, but texting.
Texting. If you can avoid a phone conversation, you can get it across with a text. I'm in.
Dishes or laundry?
Neither.
Laundry, because someone else is going to mess it up.
Okay. Night owl or early bird?
Early.
Same.
That surprises me. I was sure, Rob, you were a night owl. Liz, I had you down as an early bird.
Nope.
Oh, okay, interesting.
If I don't go to the gym at 5:30, I don't go.
Fair enough. And last one, cramming the night before or study every day?
So this is should or could or would.
I'm a crammer.
All right, that one I predicted. Okay, so how did Spectros and T-Stat actually get started? Tell us the history.
Oh gosh, so T-Stat and Spectros has been around for over 20 years. We started with our founder, Dr. David Benarin. He was in Stanford in the labs, and his wife actually had breast cancer. And he got the idea to try and focus on breast cancer detection. And so that is where the tissue oximeter was born. And then through that, he paired with some wonderful optics teams, and T-Stat was born. So it's been around for about 20 plus years. And then since then, we've grown into these new markets, which has been really great. We early on did a lot of grant work with NIH grants, so that was really wonderful too. But now we're primarily clinical, and our focus is microsurgery.
And you've made several changes. I mean, we've been using your product. I've been using your product for a long time now. It's been about 10 years, right, Rob?
I think it's been just over 10 years, actually.
Yeah, there you go. So, for good reason, but things have changed quite a bit. How have things evolved, kind of in your minds about, in terms of improvements, in terms of patient experience, in terms of the tech?
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head. One of the reasons we changed ownership was because we didn't feel like leadership was doing what needed to be done. And Lizzie and I were the ones hearing from customers on how the device should be elevated. So we swooped in and worked with our key opinion leaders like yourself, and sought feedback on what could be improved, because you said it earlier, this is about the patient experience. This is a long journey they're going through, and hopefully we're at the very end of it. And our goal, I think, is to give them peace of mind. We'll give not only them, but the surgeon peace of mind that this, I'll call it the final stage. We know it's not the final stage, but that we're headed toward that direction, and again, peace of mind. So I think that we just need to keep improving, right? I think we as people, and probably you feel this way as a surgeon, that's our goal. Like we have to keep improving.
Well, and I really appreciate, as a surgeon, using your product. I do have to say, I really appreciate the access that we have to you, and your openness to feedback, especially suggestions for incremental improvement. Once you've got a successful product, right, it's all about multiple little incremental improvements can add up to a big deal over time, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys are always open to having those conversations. How did Spectros and T-Stat actually get started? Tell us the history.
Oh gosh, so T-Stat and Spectros has been around for over 20 years. We started with our founder, Dr. David Benarin. He was in Stanford in the labs, and his wife actually had breast cancer. And he got the idea to try and focus on breast cancer detection. And so that is where the tissue oximeter was born. And then through that, he paired with some wonderful optics teams, and T-Stat was born. So it's been around for about 20 plus years. And then since then, we've grown into these new markets, which has been really great. We early on did a lot of grant work with NIH grants, so that was really wonderful too. But now we're primarily clinical, and our focus is microsurgery.
And you've made several changes. I mean, we've been using your product. I've been using your product for a long time now. It's been about 10 years, right, Rob?
I think it's been just over 10 years, actually.
Yeah, there you go. So for good reason, but things have changed quite a bit. How have things evolved, kind of in your minds about, in terms of improvements in terms of patient experience, in terms of the tech?
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head. One of the reasons we changed ownership was because we didn't feel like leadership was doing what needed to be done. And Lizzie and I were the ones hearing from customers on how the device should be elevated. So we swooped in and worked with our key opinion leaders like yourself, and sought feedback on what could be improved, because you said it earlier, this is about the patient experience. This is a long journey they're going through, and hopefully we're at the very end of it. And our goal, I think, is to give them peace of mind. We'll give not only them, but the surgeon peace of mind that this I'll call it the final stage. We know it's not the final stage, but that we're headed toward that direction, and again, peace of mind. So I think that we just need to keep improving, right? I think we as people, and probably you feel this way as a surgeon, that's our goal. Like we have to keep improving.
Well, and I really appreciate, as a surgeon, using your product. I do have to say, I really appreciate the access that we have to you, and your openness to feedback, especially suggestions for incremental improvement. Once you've got a successful product, right, it's all about multiple little incremental improvements can add up to a big deal over time, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys are always open to having those conversations. I do want to highlight why T-stat is so important. So in our practice, obviously, our core service is tissue reconstruction, and all surgeons that are doing tissue reconstruction around the globe can benefit from the T-stat, and obviously primarily their patients. So just a little bit more background in terms of the clinical aspect, I think at this point would be super useful. When we do these tissue transplant procedures, because that's really what they are, when you take a piece of tissue from one part of the patient's body and disconnect it and transplant it to the chest to reconstruct a new breast, you've got to attach the blood vessels so that blood flows in and blood flows out of the new breast. And so the highest or the biggest impact in terms of a bad outcome, the badness that we fear, is the tissue, the blood supply somehow being interrupted. So if something happens, either a kink or a twist or a little clot, where we connect the blood vessels in the chest, and then the blood doesn't flow in or out of this reconstructed breast anymore, and then the tissue dies. So that's called a flap loss. And T-stat has really revolutionized how we monitor the tissue and the blood supply to it. So when I came through training, really, we didn't have any of this tech, and it was just clinical exam, basically just looking at the tissue. And the nurses would look at it every hour and call you if they saw a change. And then we also had the pencil Doppler, which is the little probe that you put on top of the skin, and you can hear the whoosh whoosh of the heartbeat kind of sound. And as residents and as fellows, a lot of my colleagues that weren't going to go into microsurgery, they really didn't like it because there was always that 6-hour flap check, right? Which it was the resident that was charged to do this, right? And so typically, or a lot of the time, it was at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, because that was the witching hour when the flap would go down, right? So that was the fear. And so when you start adding tech into the clinical pathway and the post-op course that monitors the tissue constantly, the T-stat's a little probe, and we've got pictures of this in the Breast Advocate app, and obviously the website, which is
www.spectros.com.
So this probe is constantly attached to the flap, and it goes to a box that shows a tracing, and it shows a number for the essentially the blood going in and a number for the blood coming out. So we look at these and it gives you a number. And then the beautiful thing about the tech is that I get it on my phone. I can monitor the tissue and what it's doing on my phone. And, when I initially tell my patients, I tell them, around on them and then I tell them, hey, behave because I'm watching you when I do this, and they get all kind of freaked out. I can't hear them. I can't see them. All I see is their numbers. But it does add a lot of peace of mind. And there've been a couple of times when, for example, a patient will go on a walk and the machine is unplugged, and then someone forgets to plug it back in. And then I'll call up and I'll be like, hey guys, Mrs. So-and-so's monitor is down. What's the problem? They're like, how do you know that? We forgot to plug it in. I'm watching you. And the biggest benefit really is when things go badly, or when they go bad, when the blood vessels get twisted or clogged, if the blood supply is interrupted, you don't see the change in the tissue with the naked eye. You don't always see it straight away, and it can be a gradual, subtle change. And sometimes it can be a little bit like watching grass grow. I mean, obviously it doesn't take that long, but the event happens, the blood supply is interrupted, but then the nurses may not pick up on it because the change isn't really obvious for a few hours. And then time is tissue. So the T-stat really helps recognize an issue straight away, and it gives you that instant alarm. I get a text on my phone when the values drop below a certain number, which I can set, and then it's an instant call, and then it's if we feel there's an issue, back to surgery we go. And oftentimes the notification is so early that when you see the patient, you're like, oh man, but the tissue just looks so good. It's like, really? Are we really going to take the patient back for this? Really? And then there's some little delay in getting a surgical tray or anesthesia or something like that. And then 45 minutes goes by. And then by that time, you see the difference clinically with the naked eye. So it can be very, very easy to fix a flap if you get it back to the OR very quickly. And it can be almost impossible if too much time has gone by. And so this technology really does help improve, recognizing bad things, badness, a flap going down, and it also increases the chances of us fixing the problem. So that's, should have led off with that, but I mean, that's a really important information that patients need to know. And there are lots of ways of monitoring tissue, monitoring a flap. But this is where technology can really make a difference in terms of those incremental improvements, but big change in terms of outcomes.
Yeah, and one thing you sort of made the point, but we're also colorblind, so we work on all skin tones, which is an advantage over other potential monitoring systems as well. So that's something we're super excited about. The fact that we're white light means we can see broad spectrum. We see all sorts. We don't have a specific chromophore in our light, so we're looking at everything. So that's an advantage with us too, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, and back to your point, it's the early detection. There are different variances of a flap failure, and we can't prevent that, and often the surgeon can't prevent a lot of these issues. So if we can detect it the earliest, then you can correct those issues and hopefully go on to have no issues and no concerns.
So, we tell patients the technology is kind of like a T-stat. Some patients want to know what the number means. And we tell them it's kind of like a pulse ox, right? So it's not like a pulse ox. but it's kind of similar in terms of in the patient's mind, a really kind of simple way to put it. But of course, when someone measures your oxygen levels, you're expecting it to be 98, 99, 100. And T-stat isn't, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's hardly ever 97, 98, 100. And it's more about the trend and what the numbers are doing rather than the actual number. And sometimes the numbers can be, pretty low. They can be 30s, 40s. They kind of change over time, gradually over a few days. Sometimes if a patient's in hospital for a couple of days, you can see how it changes, but it's a gradual thing. What should we tell patients, patients that are kind of looking at this box and are looking at the numbers? How do we put their minds at ease that it's not like a pulse ox in terms of the number, the fact that 45% is okay? What should we be telling them in terms of that number? Do you have any advice in terms of a simple way to explain the white light or the technology? Any guidance on that?
The one thing I'll point out, and then I'll let Rob talk about the clinical experience, but we're using white light. So within the white light compared to near infrared technology, we're looking at a lot more information. So there's more bandwidth, there's a lot more light coming back in. So we are looking at a very specific number, and it correlates to venous saturation. So pulse ox, it's using light, but it's correlating to arterial. So that's why you want to see the high 90s. And T-stat correlates to an SpO2, which is venous saturation. So you'll see those naturally much lower, but much to your point, you really want to watch the trend, because some people start out lower. Patient health might not be as good. Patient's cold, or you're coming out of, procedure, anesthesia. All these things can affect the patient's readings. So you don't want to be alarmed necessarily if you see a lower reading. You're going to be looking at the trend. And again, your surgeon, you will know, and that's why you have alerts set for custom numbers.
Well, and I think that is the best way to explain it, right? That it's not the number itself that matters. It's that we have a steady trend, and even a trend that may dip down a little bit temporarily is okay. And that a flap that is going to have a problem that is really going down is going to keep going down. So, and by that time, you're probably already there at the hospital. A flap that's in the 50s that goes to the 40s and stays in the 40s can be fine. And if there's a true problem, it's going to go to the 30s and then the 20s and then single digits. And again, knowing you and your group, you're going to be there well before it gets that low. But that puts some peace of mind, I think, to patients that they don't need to stress about the specific number.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also experienced, like you said, in terms of it being colorblind. I mean, we've experienced that ourselves, how it really does make monitoring a lot easier on darker skin tone reconstructions. Just so patients know, the color of the skin changes when there's a problem with blood supply. And if you have a dark tone, if your skin is a darker color, it makes it harder to see those changes in the flap color early on. And the darker your skin tone, the harder it is, right? So the fact that you have a colorblind system is fantastic.
And also to the technology, when you're using near infrared technology, that is as well colorblind, because there is an interference with the melanin in your tissue. So using T-stat white light, again, it's not going to have that interference. So it doesn't matter how dark the complexion. So it's technology as well.
For sure. So, okay, so you've got this tech. It's constant monitoring. It's just putting it on the reconstructed breast skin. It's constant. The surgeon can get access to it on his phone. He gets a text if a certain number is reached, if it drops a certain amount. So early detection, the earliest possible detection, it's instantaneous notification. takes the stress off nurses, which is, super important in this day and age with all the labor shortages post-COVID and all that kind of stuff.
Well, sometimes bedside staff doesn't want to call a surgeon in the middle of the night.
Oh, that's true too. Although we're really good, we don't bark at people when they call us at 2 a.m. because we're nice, and they're only trying to do the right thing, But yes, I can see how that may happen in some places. But all these huge benefits, and it's your price point's good. So hospitals don't have a problem paying for it, right? Because they want the best outcomes for their patients. So why isn't everyone using this?
That's what we'd like to know. Keep in mind, we're a small company, and we just launched the latest version in 2020, which was a really good year for launching something new.
Yeah, that was good timing, Rob.
Yes, I know. It's just totally my idea. No, so we made the conscious decision when we knew we were going to redevelop the next generation that we didn't grow because we didn't want an inferior product being further promoted. So we sort of held what we had in place. And we were telling you, it's coming, it's going to be better, I promise.
Yeah, I stopped believing you at some point.
It was actually pretty short. I don't know if you recall.
It was pretty short.
We started in 2018, and by 2020, that's pretty good with the FDA. That's pretty remarkable.
That's very quick, very quick.
But we were very, very dedicated to it, and we started actually even before we had changed ownership. We behind the scenes had already begun the development of the next generation. So that's why. So I think we've really just had like a good year and a half, and we've grown. We have new surgeons. We're getting more people are talking about us. The Breast Advocate app is critical in that because your peers are looking at it, and so we're getting more exposure thanks to folks like you, and our surgeons that do use it and have nice things to say about us have been a huge help too. So. It is thanks to you, and I think that together we're going to keep getting the word out and improving each other along the way. I think we can do better, and I think maybe we'll start getting patient feedback soon on what they'd like to see. So that would be nice.
That would be great. Breast Advocate could help you with that. I see a campaign in the making.
Oh, I'll have to get marketing involved in that.
So you've been traveling a lot recently. I saw you guys were in London recently at the London Breast Meeting.
Yes, sir.
So, I think one of the reasons not everyone is using this great tech is because, you get used to doing some things in a certain way and change is hard, and that's a human issue, right? The only constant thing is change, but we have a hard time dealing with it. And new tech, an extra step may be at the end of a surgery, adding on an extra thing. Maybe that's an issue. I know you were at the London Breast Meeting recently, so tell us about the feedback from the Europeans in terms of T-stat and the opportunities there.
So we're excited. I may be overstating it a little bit, but I'm almost certain that everyone that came by wants to give it a try. So that's great. And as you know, there are lots of steps in there. It's not like you have something new that's available and you can try it next week. You've got to go through the process in your hospital. So we've already started that with, I think, 4 or 5 hospital systems in the UK. And a couple other countries over there. So we're excited about that. I may be going back as soon as less than 4 weeks to start our first trial over there. So that would be exciting. I should say our second. We did have someone before we had our CE mark approval last year that did do a small study with it. So but yeah, so we were well received, and hopefully this will be everywhere there too soon.
I'm sure it will be. That's great tech. It should be. I'm sure it will be. And you must be really upset about having to go back to London again.
Yeah, they talk funny there. I don't know if you
They
noticed.
do.
Yeah, they talk
do.
real
I
funny.
mean, well, maybe they can add subtitles for you, like they do on CNN. I don't understand that. Anyway.
For the BBC, yeah, that's funny. I have friends that will watch British shows with the subtitles on when the accents are real thick, like it's Irish or something. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, Peaky Blinders, that's one of my favorite shows. And actually someone in the OR told me that they love the show, but they have to watch it with subtitles because they couldn't understand the accents. And it's like, oh my gosh, okay.
That's funny.
Yeah. So upcoming meetings, other meetings perhaps coming up? Anything else any other place you're excited to branch out to?
So we're going to be active this coming year. We've got a lot coming up. We attend the World Micro Meeting, the American Society of Microsurgery, but we've really started kind of branching out and working with Breast Advocate, but also sponsoring other patient advocates. Terry Kupti over at Deep Sea Foundation has been another group that we've started working with, and I think it's a really good avenue for us because we're reaching, the patients, and the patients are the ones that we ultimately really care about. We care about the process. This is a really long process when somebody gets a diagnosis, and when they get to the point of having a breast reconstruction, it's a very difficult part of the process. So we want to make sure that obviously it goes well, it ends well, but working with other patient advocates is something that we're really trying to put more energy into. And as we are becoming a bigger company, we're able to do that. And it's something we feel really good about.
As you should, because, we've talked about this before, but patient empowerment actually matters and it makes a difference. So, as a surgeon, when you hear from patients repeatedly about, things that they are interested in, things that they may want, you start to listen more. Having a rep come by the office, it takes a lot, to get that conversation going. And the longer you've been out in practice, the less interested you are in trying new things. But when patients are coming to you and saying, hey, there's this tech, and I really feel that it will give me peace of mind when I know that it's 24/7 monitoring. And someone's keeping an eye out, and you get a text message if my flap's having a problem. I feel really good about it. And it just really, I think the patients need to know that they can talk to their surgeons about anything. You talk to your surgeon about the medications you're going to be on, the procedure if you're having surgery, the medications, your diet, your limitations. And hospital stay and monitoring for a microsurgical breast reconstruction, patients really, I think, should be empowered to talk about it. Because, okay, doc, you just finished telling me about my risks and my risk of flap loss, and how is my breast going to be monitored, right? I mean, that's a very, very valid question that I think patients need to be empowered and they should consider asking.
And I think over the last few years, because of COVID, we all had to get much more comfortable online and doing a lot of this digital communication. And because of that, I think things are really accelerating the communication with the patient. And, there's that really big movement, shared decision-making, which is patients being educated. There's so much for them to learn. There's so much access to a lot of things like Breast Advocate. But, that shared decision-making is really important.
Absolutely. And then the other thing I think is important to mention, there's no patient data involved with TSTAT, which is also something I really like. The only information that's stored in the machine is actually the surgeon's name, and what, which side, right or left breast. right? And then the rest is just a number that's completely, I mean, there's no way to tie that to any patient whatsoever. You can't even tie it to a hospital room. It's just tied to the box. So the only person who knows which box is where is the surgeon who's monitoring you via the phone online. So just some people, patient information and protection is important. So I think it's important for patients to know that.
There's a lot of regulation around that, that's for sure.
So end goal, where do you see this going? I mean, do you see maybe, Rob, we've talked about, cordless monitoring.
Yeah.
Bluetooth. I mean, are we getting close to, having the patient go home the same day with a Bluetooth T-stat so we can monitor them from the embassy suites?
That would be great. Yeah, we're not close to that, but I mean we talk about it all the time. So our engineers are peppered with that constantly. It's a tough question to answer because our technology is tied to two things, which I don't want to bore everybody with, but we have a flex circuit on the sensor itself. That is a little microchip in itself that then parses out the algorithm within the machine. So those two things have to connect together. And so we worry about, you'd have to have all of that in a wireless device on the patient. So it could bring cost way, way up early at this point of things. Mm-hmm. And then not to mention the amount of heat that would be involved in that. So we'd have to figure out how to dissipate that. But as things get smaller and smaller, that gets easier and easier. It's just, we're still a good several years out from that, unfortunately. I'd like to say, oh yeah, that's in development, but those couple of factors make it a bigger challenge for us. But believe me, there's not a week that goes by that's not something we're talking about here.
Yeah, because we're a small company, we're able to move really quickly and listen to surgeons and listen to feedback and try and make those changes. So we are always working on that. We constantly have people working on new ideas. But it's not super simple with TSTAT, but that's what makes us really exceptional, is because we have really amazing technology that you can't just simply make remote compared to other pulse oximeter devices.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you are nimble and you definitely put the patient first. And I really appreciate it. And thank you again for sponsoring Breast Advocate. We're very, very thankful. And I look forward to many more years of collaboration. And maybe we should follow up and see how we can get some feedback for you.
That sounds great. We would love to start getting some patient feedback. And I want to say too that we're grateful to be part of not just your practice, but also the Breast Advocate as well. We do think it's a tremendous value to patients, and we're happy to be, grateful to be a part of it.
And we get to work with you. You're pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Meh. Actually, so we gave out, we created and gave out our first meh award at the hospital. Yeah.
We didn't get it, did we?
No, you didn't get it. It was actually for our lead, our head surgical tech. He's awesome. Not that you
were team grown so much through the years. It's really exciting to see you guys.
Yeah, no, it's great. We have a huge team now. And we have a lot of fun at work, Paul, who's our lead tech, I don't think anyone knows what he looks like, because every time he's in a social media post, a picture, we put a question mark over his face, kind of like a joke. And for a joke, because he is so good, we actually gave him the first Meh award, just to he thought that was funny. And actually, we gave him that because he's a Green Bay Packers fan.
There you go. That
little dig, so that makes sense. Yeah. So anyway, guys, thanks so much. Great to see you.
Yes, good to see you too.
Thank you, Dr. Chrysopoulo.
You're welcome, Liz.
Yes, thank you very much.
And hopefully see you guys in person soon.
Yes, the next meeting.
Very soon.
Are you? But you don't go to the ASPS, do you? That's the next one.
No, we'll be in Miami though at the ASRM in January.
Cool beans.
Will you be there?
Of course, you'll be there.
Yeah, actually, I don't know that I will be.
Well,
Oh,
will we get to see someone from PRMA?
I don't know. I would imagine.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
would
I
like
would
to.
imagine. Yeah, that'd be great. All right, guys, we'll keep in touch.
Yes.
Take care.
Cheers. Keep up the good work.
cheers.